Hey, what's up guys? Gons here for the Face Like the Sun channel. This is part 3 of We Are Being Gamified. Please watch parts 1 and 2 if you haven't already. Links to those videos plus all the sources for this video will be down in the description. And just as an update, Ray Vahey contacted me a couple years ago and asked me to be a part of BitChute. And so all of my videos that have ever been published on this YouTube channel is on BitChute, so definitely go subscribe to BitChute as a backup to this channel here, because it certainly feels like we're going to be shut down here any minute. Now for this video, I do some analysis on a couple of the biggest blockchain projects through the lens of gamification and Bible prophecy. As always, I share the raw information, but I also share my opinions regarding these things on top of it. And as a reminder, this is not meant to be any kind of financial advice. Anytime I do bring that stuff up, please do your own research, come to your own conclusions on everything, and here we go. So I want to dive into a few projects here and discuss how they have tangibly begun to gamify the world. Now, for full transparency, I do not own any Tron tokens. And no, this is not the movie Tron, this is the blockchain protocol. And the most recent news that's been out there regarding Tron is its founder, Justin Sun, who is touted as kind of a marketing genius more than a tech genius. He paid $4.6 million in a donation to some kind of charity to win a luncheon with Warren Buffett. And of course, Buffett, who is part of the legacy economy, has been pretty critical of Bitcoin and the cryptocurrency space, but that might all just be a front anyways. You never know with these people, the wealthy, the billionaires. They come out and say things to the public about various assets, and there's always a monetary agenda behind that, and we just don't know why they would say things that they do, other than it's probably to protect their own name, their own assets that they have invested in, things of that nature. So it's hard to really believe what they truly think about some of these emerging technologies. But one thing is certain, Tron purchased BitTorrent last year and has basically taken over the project, which leads me to think that this is all kind of part of the plan anyway for projects like Tron. Now allow me to explain. The co-creator of BitTorrent, Bram Cohen, is largely responsible for the creation of torrenting itself. But sometime during or after the acquisition of BitTorrent by Tron, Cohen left the entire project pretty disgruntled, and he had not nice things to say about Tron, and he started his own digital asset project called Chia. But if you sit back and think about it for a second, if a protocol like BitTorrent, which is one of those technologies that assist in the free and anonymous exchange of information on the internet, is being officially bought out by a multi-billion-dollar project that barely has any products out yet, but was birthed in China, I think maybe, just maybe, some elite members of our human civilization here has their hands in the whole process. But what do I know? I'm just an internet guy. But anyway, in the same way the Tron movie depicts the gamification of life, the blockchain protocol of Tron is poised pretty much to do the same, even though it's in its infancy at the moment. Take a look at these dApps that are put out on the Tron network. Now, if you don't know what dApps are, they are decentralized applications. And if you notice, a lot of these are games or gambling stations where you can earn or spend or risk Tron. And you even have this crazy dragon game, which is, I mean, it's all right for a game that's built on the blockchain. It looks pretty good. But remember what I mentioned in the first video about people who are unemployed sitting around and playing games instead of looking for real jobs, because the games are going to start actually paying people for their energy, their attention, all kinds of things. So I want to elaborate on that here by quoting GameQuitters.com. Quote, over the last 15 years, as video game usage has increased, so too has unemployment for young men in their early 20s. Not going to school and without a bachelor's degree, these young men have replaced 75% of the time they used to spend working with playing video games. End quote. The site goes on to show how video gamers don't help, but actually hurt the economy. Quote, In South Korea, a study estimated the socioeconomic loss due to excessive internet use to be between $1.5 and $4.5 billion in 2009. Interestingly, 2009 was the year Bitcoin was released, or the Bitcoin white paper was released. Imagine what the socioeconomic impact is worldwide when young men are too busy gaming to be working and contributing to society, end quote. So while you can sense an urgency of these issues, it's clear that they didn't really factor in the emergence of Internet 3.0 and the whole blockchain era, creating this sort of monetary system where games and gambling become much more prevalent and easy to use for a lot of people around the world. But even more ironic is the conclusion that GameQuitters.com comes to or suggests at the end. Quote, "Life is the ultimate video game." For gaming addicts struggling to find employment, treat the job search like a game. Set a goal of how many job applications you will submit each day and whether you hear back or not. You can always press the restart button and try again tomorrow, end quote. Oh, man, horrible. Or using the same time they would be spending online either looking for a job or working on their resumes, we can be certain that there's going to be more and more of these unemployed young people, or just unemployed people in general when whole industries get kicked out because of robot arms, are going to be accessing blockchains like Tron to play games, gamble, and earn enough to pay the bills. And if it's starting to sound like Real Player One and all these movies we talked about in part one, well, here it is. And while this is still, again, in its infancy, the immersion into AR and VR are being developed rapidly. And there are many, many projects that are assisting in this brand new digital economy. But the one I really wanted to talk about is actually, ironically, one of the favorite coins by Crypto Crow that I mentioned earlier. And that project is Cardano, ticker symbol ADA, or ADA. Now, again, just for full transparency, I do own a small amount of Cardano because, again, I see projects like this as being promising in the future in terms of a dollar return. Although, I gotta be honest, I'm having second thoughts about holding it after the investigation I did here. But again, it goes back to look at the back of your dollar bill. The all-seeing eye pyramid and all that stuff, that's there too. And so it's really just, again, the progress of this type of thing. But what is Cardano? Their own website says, quote, "Cardano is a decentralized public blockchain and cryptocurrency project and is fully open source. Cardano is developing a smart contract platform which seeks to deliver more advanced features than any protocol previously developed. It is the first blockchain platform to evolve out of a scientific philosophy and a research-first driven approach. The development team consists of a large global collective of expert engineers and researchers," end quote. A nice way of saying technocrats. So here's the thing. There's a lot of skepticism in the world of cryptocurrency with projects being scams and things of that nature. If one is worried about investing their hard-earned dollar into something like that, then Cardano might be something to look at just because they are very focused on transparency. You can see all of their audits and they have weekly reports and all this stuff. And again, they're building credibility through the legacy world of computer science and just technology and all that stuff. Charles Hoskinson, who's the creator and leader of Cardano or ADA, has been pretty adamant that this approach is the correct way to go in making sure that all the technology checks out and will be used and implemented and it will work and scale and all that kind of stuff. He really thinks it's going to change the face of the internet.
We've been inundated with requests from people who want to deploy on Cardano, want to use Cardano, everything from Fortune 1000 companies to governments to municipalities. And that is probably not going to stop anytime soon. I am very, very happy with that channel. And I believe very firmly that once things are made available, with or without IOHK, Emergo, and other actors, we're going to see pretty swift adoption of Cardano as a platform to deploy applications on and a platform to handle a lot of complex financial arrangements. So this is something that makes me pretty excited, and it's something that's been validated by constant travel throughout the world. Speaking of constant travel, I'm about ready to go on my last major trip of the year, and hopefully the last major trip I do for a long while. I'm going to be going to Japan, Georgia, and Israel very shortly, meeting with several heads of state. And then after that, I'll be traveling to Uganda. Uganda, we're meeting with some of the royal family there, as well as the head of state, and attending several major events. Then from Uganda, I'm flying to Korea for several conferences and other events and private meetings with large companies there in Korea. And then after Korea, I'll be traveling to Argentina for our largest hackathon we hope to hold, and that's the one in Buenos Aires. After that, I'm going home, and I'm going to be staying at home for a bit. So you won't see me traveling as much post July. This industry is pretty hard at times. It's pretty harsh at times, and it does tend to attract colorful personalities. But I'd like to believe that the majority of the people in this industry are well-intended, and they do believe in a better world. And I'd like to believe that the technology that we're building is part of the solution for that. But it's going to take a lot of effort, and it's going to take a lot of hard work. And we're just going to keep showing up every day and keep doing that hard work every day.
And I gotta be honest, it probably will do a lot of good, a lot of help in terms of getting people who are living in less than ideal conditions out of poverty. But nevertheless, let me dive into some of the names here and the possible spiritual messaging going on. It's quite alarming. First off, the name Cardano is likely named after Girolamo Cardano, a 16th century Italian polymath with many interests from biology, chemistry, astrology, astronomy, philosophy, writing, and even gambling, which we'll see come up later again. He's credited with being one of the key figures behind probabilities, introducing binomial coefficients and the binomial theorem in the West. He was imprisoned by the Inquisition and later received a lifetime annuity from Pope Gregory VIII, and is even remembered to have predicted his own time of death, although skeptics have suggested it was achieved through timed suicide, which is another one of those self-fulfilling prophecies or prophecies fulfilled nonetheless type of mind-benders. So why Cardano? Why is he relevant to the stuff we discuss on this channel? Well, remember John Dee from Age of Deceit 2? The guy who said he figured out the Enochian language based on a crystal ball and doing some kind of weird seance thing? Well, according to the Royal College of Physicians in London, quote, one of the foremost astrologers of the age was Girolamo Cardano, 1501 to 1576, a physician, mathematician, and gambler from Milan. John Dee owned copies of several of Cardano's work, and the two men even met once in London in the year 1552 or 1553, end quote. Now, this website even has pictures of Dee's comments scribbled in the margins of books written by Cardano. Quote, the RCP library owns Dee's copy of a compendium of Cardano's works, titled Libelli Quinque. The astrological treatises in this book include treatises of the movements of the planets, explanations of how to interpret these, and Cardano's collection of 100 nativities for famous people from history and the present day. Nativities are horoscope charts, diagrams of the positions of stars and planets, calculated at the exact time of a person's birth, and interpreted to give information about that person's personality, abilities, physical appearance, health, wealth, length of life, and other features. Dee's copy of this book shows that he studied it closely. He has written annotations in the margins, including comments, interpretations, and astrological symbols, and he even fitted in newly calculated horoscopes wherever there was space on the page, end quote. So, boom, the occultist John Dee was highly influenced by Cardano, the man this blockchain protocol is named after. So, now that we know its origins, I think the rest is going to make sense, but even the things that Cardano allegedly wrote about, the positions of the stars and planets, these were things taught by the Watchers. But let me move on to the next thing here. The name of their proof of stake algorithm is none other than Ouroboros. I'm not a super expert, but I understand the basics of the difference between proof of stake and proof of work algorithms, where something like Bitcoin is proof of work and Cardano is actually trying to make proof of stake a viable option. Quote, Ouroboros is the first proof of stake protocol that has mathematically been shown to be provably secure, and the first to have gone through peer review through its acceptance to Crypto 2017, a leading cryptography conference, end quote. Now remember, the word crypto is short for cryptography. It's not short for cryptocurrency. So for those of you thinking Crypto 2017 was some kind of fanboy conference for people who like cryptocurrencies, it wasn't. It was a cryptography conference. But nevertheless, if you want to know what I think about the Ouroboros in general, go check out Age of Deceit 3, where I do a deep dive into how I think it's some kind of error code in the fallen state of creation. But moving on here, the virtual wallet that's designed by Cardano is called Daedalus. Now in Greek mythology, Daedalus was a skillful craftsman and artist and was seen as a symbol of wisdom, knowledge, and power. He was first mentioned in Homer, and he built the labyrinth for King Minos of Crete, where he was later imprisoned. And Daedalus was also the father of Icarus, and he helped Icarus come up with the plan to escape from the labyrinth by inventing the wax wings in the famous mythology. In a later commentary of the mythology written by Ovid in his Metamorphoses, quote, Daedalus was shut up in a tower to prevent the knowledge of his labyrinth from spreading to the public, end quote. So, did they really have a wallet named after the mythological guy who made the wax wings for Icarus? And if we draw out the analogy and we are the ones using that wallet, does that mean we are being seen or tested or gamed as a sort of Icarus creature who are totally dumb enough to fly too close to the sun despite all the warnings? I don't know, it's just kind of very strange when you start looking into this stuff. But while all of this is for public consumption, there are other things under the hood that also warrant some attention. According to Cardano's documentation section, quote, Plutus is a strictly typed pure functional programming language used for defining smart contracts in Cardano, end quote. Now, Plutus in Greek mythology is the god of wealth. In the theology of the Eleusinian mysteries, he is regarded as the divine child. In Canto 7 of Dante's The Inferno, Pluto is a demon of wealth who guards the fourth circle of hell, quote, the hoarders and the wasters. And Dante likely included Plutus to symbolize the evil of hoarding wealth, which is again sort of ironic that their whole concept is based on proof of stake or staking your tokens on your computer or in your wallet, and that being a way to validate and strengthen the Cardano network. It's kind of like hoarding. I don't know, it's just weird. But to round out this short analysis of names here associated with this project is their ticker symbol ADA. And many believe that ADA was named after the coding language created by the Department of Defense, but actually ADA doesn't originate with the government-sponsored programming language, but the DoD themselves also named their language ADA after this person, a lady named Augusta Ada King Noel, Countess of Lovelace, otherwise known as Ada Lovelace. This on her Wikipedia page, quote, Augusta Ada King Noel, Countess of Lovelace, was an English mathematician and writer, chiefly known for her work on Charles Babbage's proposed mechanical general-purpose computer, the analytical engine. She was the first to recognize that the machine had applications beyond pure calculation and published the first algorithm intended to be carried out by such a machine. As a result, she is often regarded as the first to recognize the full potential of a computing machine and the first computer programmer. And this would have been sometime between 1815 when she was born and 1852 when she passed away. What's interesting about Ada Lovelace was not only that she was basically the first computer programmer, but she was also a very compulsive gambler. And again, this whole thing of gambling seems to come up a lot in this area. But what's even worse is that Ada Lovelace actually used her knowledge in programming to attempt to predict the future and basically game the system. According to History.com, in a section about Ada Lovelace, it says, quote, beginning in the 1840s, Lovelace began a gambling habit that contributed to her dwindling finances and forced her to secretly pawn the Lovelace family's diamonds. According to Lady Byron and her daughters, Lovelace once lost 3,200 francs betting on the wrong horse at the Epsom Derby. Ada, encouraged by conmen, would turn her prodigious talents towards gambling and programming the outcomes of horse races, wrote Marcus, who added that a mysterious book that passed between Lovelace and Babbage once a week probably contained a program designed to predict horse race results. Now, I don't really believe in coincidences, but I find it awfully fascinating that a lot of these names and titles always have a connection to the mystery schools, sometimes just philosophically, other times directly with the practitioners of the occult arts, with the theme of gambling coming up over and over again. And while many might dismiss all of this as nothing more than just, cool names for various aspects of the project, it's difficult to ignore the power that words and names and titles have in terms of their spiritual influence in the way that they manifest in the world. So Cardano, even though it has all this occult sort of names, aims to really be at the forefront of this fourth industrial revolution, and it's specifically targeting Africa. Now, I happen to think that the film Black Panther was a giant piece of predictive programming, and it had to do with this concept of a revived, technologically advanced Africa. And I get the feeling that a company like Cardano is really laying the groundworks to begin deploying this infrastructure in Africa. According to an article in the Cryptopolitan, quote, on the matter of bringing new individuals to space, Hoskinson added that the team was presently talking with Ethiopian government for the development of tokens for Addis Ababa. And for even more evidence, consider this Forbes.com article, Blockchain Africa Rising, quote, most African countries suffer from a deficit of trust. Whereas in the West, setting institutional trust is often taken for granted, in Africa, trust comes at a premium. In the case of land titling, the problem is simple. If you are not sure you own a piece of land, or you are unable to prove that you own it, why would you want to build on it? The same thesis applies to getting paid for your labor or goods. This friction between the physical and digital worlds is where Cardano sees its greatest opportunity. Aside from ag tech, Cardano sees its future potential impact in other areas of business processes, land titling, healthcare, public transportation, and of course, payments, end quote. So again, you can see how on the one hand, blockchain protocols can be tremendously useful in lowering fraud, reducing the stealing or changing of information, and create a safer, more transparent verification system by way of a publicly trusted ledger to verify all those things on. But on the other hand, again, you can see the problems where unless the item, asset, or even the person is not verifiable on the blockchain ledger, then they cannot access the economic ecosystem to make transactions. And really, the ambitions for projects like Cardano are pretty clear if you look at their updated roadmap here. It's interesting to see how various phases of development have come along. Byron for the foundation, Shelley for decentralization, which I think we're still in, Goguen, which is for the development of smart contracts, Basho for the scaling, and Voltaire, which is governance. Interesting how governance is their final phase. And while Cardano is not specifically a platform for games, you can bet that once they begin rolling out all the software development kits and the ability to build on top of Cardano, people will be making games. It's possible that projects like Cardano don't ever make it. They just fall apart. But if you look at how many billions of dollars are already into this project, if anything else, it's likely that people can make a little bit of money by investing when it's low and making sure to take out profits when it's high. But again, those are just things that you can do with this, not financial advice whatsoever. But to wrap things up here and connect it to how the closing in of this infrastructure is not just happening from the cryptocurrency space, but also from the gaming side itself, I want to talk about a game that they announced at this year's 2019 E3 event, since the recording of this video is happening on that same week. It's the third installment of a game franchise called Darksiders, this one called Genesis, which is meant to be a prequel to the 2010 release of Darksiders 1. Let me highlight some of the storylines from this game in 2010 before we dive into the new one. Now, in the original game, the Darksiders, the plotline reads like Dr. Michael Heiser's book Unseen Realm, only the occult version of it. You basically play a character named War, and he's one of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, and he's also a Nephilim. And the biblical references in this book are off the charts. Let me read a little bit from the story summary here. Quote, "Since the beginning of time, the kingdoms of heaven and hell have waged war, with neither side ever being able to gain an advantage over the other. Thus, in time, a mediator group named the Charred Council arose to maintain order and balance. To this end, they created a warrior brotherhood, the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, war, death, strife, and fury, to intervene and enforce their laws where and when necessary. Amidst the conflict, humanity emerged. Foreseeing that humans would be integral and contribute to the balance's stability, the council declared them a third kingdom, the kingdom of man. The council brokered a truce between heaven and hell, and 7 seals were created to be broken when the kingdom of man was ready for the end war." Some other characters' names here: Abaddon. You also have a reference to the 7th seal. They definitely have the names of watchers like Uriel, Samael, Azrael. They also have a black tower. It just goes on and on. So now that we have an overview of the Darksiders story, let's look at the newest installment, Genesis, which again is supposed to be the prequel. Quote, "Genesis serves as a prequel taking place years before Darksiders and Darksiders 2, and a spin-off to the main series, being the 4th installment of Darksiders' series. The Horseman Strife serving as the protagonist, with War serving as a secondary protagonist. From the dawn of creation, the Charred Council has maintained the balance across existence. Carrying out their orders are the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, Nephilim, powerful beings spawned from the unnatural union of angels and demons who have pledged themselves to the council and been granted immense power. However, this power came at a tragic cost. The horsemen were ordered to use their newfound strength to wipe out the rest of their kind. What followed was a bloody battle on Eden where the horsemen, obeying the will of the council, annihilated the Nephilim. Still reeling from the events of Eden, War, and Strife, have been given a new assignment. Lucifer, the enigmatic and deceptive Demon King, has been plotting to upset the balance by granting power to master demons throughout hell. War and Strife must hunt down these masters, gather information, and ultimately find their way through a tangled, demonic conspiracy that threatens to forever upset the balance and unravel all of creation." End quote. Now, talk about a game that's trying to get us familiar with the actual spiritual drama and war that took place in the ancient past and is still at work today. The acceleration of rapidly advancing consumer technology, along with the rise in the interest of the supernatural and occult philosophies, in conjunction with the bizarre blending of our material world with the virtual and the tokenization of everything, is clearly leading us to a place where playing a video game becomes one's occupation. When I look at this from a biblical worldview, it's interesting because the outcome of the game, if you will, is already over. God wins. And while I know it may seem like escapist to say that, in reality, the things that are right in front of us are very palpable opportunities to be faithful servants of God until he returns and puts an end to this age. This means spreading his truth for the salvation of souls right there in the midst of the infrastructure that will likely fulfill many prophecies. So maybe we are all just players in a giant game that's rigged for those who are willing to put their faith in the trust in Jesus Christ. But even so, the knowledge and source of the truths concerning this age must come from a transcendent source. And in my opinion, based on all measures of investigation that I have applied so far in my life, that transcendent source is only found through the Word of God, where an integrated message system appears to tell us history before it happens. There's an old acronym that made the rounds in Christian circles to summarize the purpose of the Bible, and I've mentioned it on this channel before. And it's kind of cheesy, but it really makes sense in this context of being gamified. The Bible is BIBLE, basic instructions before leaving Earth. And to me, the reason why everything is becoming gamified is because the ultimate way to draw people in to give up and abandon their souls is through distraction, is through entertainment, is through the blind pursuit of pleasure. And because this immersion technology, with its capacity to verify and the power to allow or deny access to buying and selling, I hope you understand why I decided to name these videos We Are Being Gamified, #DonttakeTheMark. There's a lot more information that can be examined and investigated regarding the things that I've brought up in these two videos, and maybe I'll add to it as time goes on, but what do you think about the gamification of reality, from business to academia to the advancements in video games themselves, and especially the infrastructure being built with a new digital economy poised to disrupt the old legacy systems, which it already has, and it's already started, and people are going to have different opinions about various things, and it could be quite overwhelming. But if you can step back and take a look at how you are going to play it, allow the Holy Spirit to lead, things are going to work out. So there you have it. That's the 3-part series, We Are Being Gamified. I know there's a lot more that can be said. There are a lot of signs taking place daily to confirm this notion that we're being gamified. So check back regularly, as I will be reporting on some of those things as I find them important to share. Remember to check out Canary Cry Radio as well as Canary Cry News Talk. We've had guest co-hosts in the last few weeks while Basil is out traveling. Last week we had Mel from Truth Stream Media, and next week we actually have Dr. Michael Heiser in the guest seat. So I'm really looking forward to that. Definitely check it out. You can also support everything we do here on patreon.com/FaceLikeTheSun, or purchase t-shirts over at Teespring. We got a couple designs over there. The #DonttakeTheMark shirts were limited time, so those are gone. So those of you who bought those shirts, thank you so much, and you guys have an exclusive design. And I also wanted to share a new design that I have, a Revelation 9:6 design that I think definitely communicates what we're talking about here on this channel. So other than that, thank you guys for watching this video. Please share, subscribe. Have an awesome day. God bless.